Hi, welcome to this episode of The Daily. My name is Brendan Malone. Well, if you haven't heard the news, Bernie Sanders has been invited to speak at the Vatican at an upcoming conference on economics. Now, despite what some of the media are saying, he was not invited by Pope Francis. Well, not as far as I can tell. It seems to be someone much lower down the food chain who has invited him. And I personally think it was a mistake to invite Bernie Sanders. This has got nothing to do with his politics, by the way. And let me explain what I mean. First of all, Bernie Sanders has made no secret of the fact that he's staunchly committed to abortion and upholding abortion. What that means is that as a politician, if he were to become president of the United States, he would be supporting and carrying out and endorsing and seeing through policies that are completely opposed to the most important principle of Catholic social justice and Catholic social teaching, and that is the right to life. Social justice begins in the womb, and so, Bernie holds a position that is seriously opposed to that. And so I think there's some really important questions around the prudence of having someone who is so staunchly opposed to Catholic social teaching, then presenting at a conference on economics. Now, I know we have to engage with people and dialogue with people who might disagree with us, but I think you can do that without inviting them to a conference. You can pick up a phone. As Pope Francis has proven that. You can pick up a phone, you can get on a plane, you can have those meetings and begin that process of dialogue without opening up a possibility of scandal by inviting him to speak at the Vatican. I also wonder whether we would be so willing to trade off on that issue if it was any other issue. Let's say that Bernie Sanders was the same guy, except instead of abortion, it was slavery that he supported, or it was human trafficking, or he denied global warming. I wonder whether he would have got the invite then. And maybe he would have, I don't know, but I sort of have my doubts. And I think that's because often we try and compartmentalise the issue of abortion, which is a grave injustice in our society, and sort of push it to the side when perhaps we should actually not do that and instead take it more seriously because it is such a serious violation, as Pope Francis has continually pointed out, as the Church has continued to point out. It's such a serious and grave violation of human rights and human personhood and human dignity and social justice. The second point, and I think this is a really big one, is the fact that Bernie Sanders is currently involved in electioneering. So by inviting him, he's one of 4 people who is vying to try and become the next president of the United States. He's got a 25% chance of getting there. If he wins the Democratic Party nomination, it will be him and one other person vying to become the president of the United States. And by next year, him or one of those other 3 people will be the president. But by inviting him to speak at the Vatican and timing it the way that it's been timed, it effectively appears to be a situation of the Church endorsing a political candidate. Because why else would you invite a guy who's running for president to come and speak at the Vatican? Now, that may not have been their intention, to be fair to the people who invited him, but I think it's pretty sort of naive and poorly thought out to then think that that's not how the general public would take such an invitation. In fact, Bernie Sanders has effectively been touting it as that anyway. And can you blame him? Because it does appear to be an endorsement. Like I said, I don't think that's necessarily what they intended, but the problem is no one stopped to think about how this would look. I don't think any politician, even if I was a politician and I was electioneering, there's no way I should be invited to the Vatican, because the Church's job is not to endorse candidates. The Church's job is to, and the Church's role when it comes to politics is to, I think, to call us all to uphold the common good. It's to encourage, to call on our politicians when they don't uphold the common good, and it's to proclaim the important moral truths that politicians need to adhere to and that we need to consider as voters. But the Church should not be in the business of endorsing individual candidates, and there's a really problematic thing in doing that, and that's unfortunately how this appears to be. And lastly, there is the sort of, the pragmatic question. He's been invited to a conference on economics. He's been invited to talk about economics and morality, but he's got no proven track record really to speak of in that arena, because he hasn't been president yet or leader of a country, so we don't know what he's going to be like. For all we know, if he was to become president, he could be a very immoral president who subjugates and treats people in a very unjust way. We just don't know. So I think there's a certain risk in inviting him to speak when there's no real track record there to speak of. Secondly, a lot of people are pointing out the fact, and this is left-wing commentators, centre commentators, who don't have any political problem with Bernie Sanders and would agree with him on a lot of issues. And they're saying, look, he's got a lot of heart, but the economic proposals and the economic policies that he's pushing and putting forward a lot of them just aren't sustainable and they are not economically sound. So I don't know why you would have someone who has faced criticism from people who are not political opponents, from people who are simply who are interested in the economic side of things, who are saying that these proposals are not economically sound. I don't know why you would invite a person like that to speak at a conference on economics, and especially when you think about the topic they've given him, which is morality and economics. And as I said, I would have thought that the fundamental start point of all morality and ethics and social justice is the beginning of a new human life. And so it sort of seems strange to have someone in that situation who's promoting a gravely immoral and unjust act and who is staunchly supporting that to then be speaking at the Vatican on morality. Like I said, the people who organised this probably had no idea of the firestorm they were walking into. I imagine what happened was that people made a decision with their heart instead of really thinking through the outcomes of actually inviting someone who is currently running to try and win the presidency of the United States of America to come and speak at a Vatican conference like this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow on the Daily.